Okay, perfect. Well, welcome, Sabrina, to the Authentically Roots podcast. I am so grateful to have you here right now.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure. And my first thing that I've kind of been asking, like any guest who's come on lately, is just what makes you feel just really connected to your own authentic power?
That's a good question. And you know what? I think in different parts of my life, it will be different answers. And at this phase of my life that I'm in, you said, do you mind repeating the question so I can answer it right?
Yeah, of course. Just what makes you feel most connected to your authentic power?
Most connected to my authentic power, I would say following my intuition, like listening to where my intuition is guiding me. It's like whenever I try to logically make decisions, it's never as good as when I like lean into the trust of my intuition. And I feel most myself when I do that and most in my power.
I love that. That's such a good answer because like intuition literally is like our power that's flowing through us and it's like a direct connection to our true selves like if we just choose to listen to it. I love that so much. And
Yeah.
just to kind of get you introduced on here as well, I'd love if you could just share a little bit about your background too and like what you're doing right now because I've done one of Sabrina's brain trainings. That's actually how we met and it had such a great impact on me. Like it was only one session and I became so much more productive because of it ever since. So I just am so grateful for her just sharing that with me and I'd love for you to just share what you do with everyone listening too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go back in time to before I got into personal development work, mindset work, spirituality, all of it, was I was severely depressed since I was a little girl. I don't remember a point in time where I was not very depressed and very anxious. And I had panic attacks when I started to get a little older, like into my teens and like young 20s. I started to get like panic attacks. The anxiety was getting worse. The depression was getting like crippling. I was burning myself out. I was going to school full time in the day, working a restaurant in the evening, working overnights as an EMT, studying whenever I had the chance, was not sleeping, binge drinking till I blacked out all the time. And I was just not in a good place. And one day, my sister, I believe it was, oh, what year was it? I'm so bad with the years. 2018, summer of 2017. It was either summer of 2017 or summer of 2018. My sister texted me and said, you should watch um, the Netflix documentary, The Secret. And I went on Netflix and I watched The Secret. And if you're not familiar with it, it's the documentary that describes and goes into like the basics of the law of attraction. And this was like my first time ever being introduced to the law of attraction. And I was like mind blown. I was like, oh, I can see how I've attracted such like horrible relationships in my life that have like treated me like trash. I can see how I've like manifested all of this awful like mental health because I keep focusing on the negative. I keep replaying all these like awful stories in my head. And I could see my part in playing the negative. I used to call my life like a series of unfortunate events. I could see how like my take in those series of unfortunate events and it inspired me, but also I would say I was like the biggest like open-minded skeptic. Like I was very open-minded, but also very skeptical. So when I saw that, I was like, that's cool. I can see how it works. It feels right, but like how? Like I want to see the proof. And so at this time, I was also studying to go towards nursing school. So I was in school full time and the nerd like side of my brain, I just went into a rabbit hole of like it brought me to the science of quantum physics, which is like the study of matter and energy. It basically describes on a scientific level how the law of attraction works. So I dove into that. I dove into neuroscience, psychology, like human behavior, like why we are the way that we are, subconscious programming, like why has my mind been this way, but other people can like operate in a completely different way. And it really led me as I was going through the processes and I was reading every book I could get my hands on. I was binging all of the YouTube videos. YouTube was such like a learning hub for me, which what inspired me to start my own YouTube channel. And over time, I came across like an inner healing method called Ho'oponopono. Have you heard of it?
Yes, I love that prayer. I've used it so much throughout like just getting into personal growth. It's amazing.
Girl, me too. That prayer, that like healing method, however you want to describe it, I was able to heal through things that I never thought I would get over. And I was like, it was at that point where I was like, oh my God, I can heal myself. I can change my life. And so from there, I was like, if I wasn't already balls to the wall, I was like balls to the wall, like getting into everything. I was like, I'm feeling better. My physical health is improving. My depression has lifted. I was doing so many things to help my mental health and my relationships were improving. And so, snowball effect, fast forward, I I decided to step away from nursing school and start my own business, Better You by Sabrina, where I teach others how to now train their brains to hit their goals. And this can really be, I work with a lot of different like entrepreneurs and aspiring or established entrepreneurs. I work with a lot of different creatives and dreamers, really just anyone with a big dream, like actors, models, like anyone. But also, I've worked with many people who, have goals in their relationships, have goals with their like self-love, have goals with their mental health. And so I've tried to like put myself into a box so many times of like, this is the exact like person that I help. But I love these methods really work for every person in every area of their life. And I've used it to completely transform every area of my own life. And so it's so like versatile and transformational to use these tools of the knowledge of like how our brains are wired and can be rewired and the effect of the universal laws, how to like live in alignment with the universal laws to really get what you want out of life and live like the purpose to live in like your soul's purpose that you're meant to.
That's so incredible. And thank you so much for just sharing your journey. I think just the awareness you had when you saw the law of attraction, you're like, there's something to this. Like, and just what you said before, like just following your intuition is your most authentic way of embodying your power. Like, I think that just like goes so hand in hand together. Like, that was your intuition going off right there, being like, go down this route. And I think it's so cool that just the simple things create the biggest ripple effects too, like what you said of using Ho'oponopono. And for anyone who just doesn't know Ho'oponopono, it's basically just like a Hawaiian prayer of forgiveness. And you just
Mhm.
say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And you can use it like towards yourself, you can use it towards others. It's really just a way of just forgiving yourself, forgiving people around you so you can move forward and just be more present in your life. But I just think that that's so amazing that you're now helping people with that as well. And you touched a little bit on how it helps with mental health too. And I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into just your work and especially with anxiety and depression and how that's really just played a huge role in your life and how you kind of support other people through that too, just for anyone who's listening who is currently dealing with these things. Because I know that a huge part of our society goes through these things and we've really normalized these things when like my own personal thing is I don't think it should be normal. I think we've just taken it on too much as our own identity. So I would just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you're bringing this up because I feel like it really is it impacts so many people. And to anyone who may be struggling with depression, anxiety, really any like mental health, um, problem that's you feel like is inhibiting your growth, I want to first just like open my heart and give my love to you because I know how scary and difficult and frustrating and all of the things it can feel. And also with mental health, so if I were to describe, how to benefit your mental health and how to use better you methods or even just any type of brain training, personal development methods to help yourself, I want to go back to explain how your brain was developed in this way to begin with. And this is, from my own experience. And also, like I said, I was on track for nursing school. So, associates of science, I'm now a neuro-linguistic practitioner, basically understanding the language of the subconscious mind, how to speak to the subconscious. And I have a lot of background in the studies of quantum physics and studying doctors' research. So, I've done my research, I've done my studies when I say this. When we are like growing up, let's just think about from the ages of 0 to 7. Your brain is such a sponge to like everything around you, and you are absorbing all of the uh, all of the energies, all of the emotions that you're exposed to. If you see your parents fighting, your brain at that point in time does not have the conscious ability to be like, oh, it's not normal for my parents to fight, to hit each other, to like be yelling, right? It's not in your conscious brain to like point that out. Your brain as a baby just goes, okay, this is love. This is what I'm being told love is. Love is violent. Love is demeaning, love is degrading, right? And so then love doesn't feel safe. So then you go about your life, right, feeling that love isn't safe, but it's so subconscious, meaning you're not consciously aware of it. 90 to 95% of your day-to-day thoughts, emotions, actions, behaviors are derived from your subconscious mind. You're only consciously aware of 5 to 10% of your thoughts, emotions, actions, behaviors. And so you really think that you're in so much control of your life, but it's really your subconscious programming, which is why we're so big on reprogramming the subconscious. So to go on to explain how your brain has been programmed in this way to be at a baseline of depression and anxiety. As you experience those situations, it doesn't even have to be traumatic. It could be such little things. And it's crazy because I've done inner healing methods where I've gone back and it's a lot of times it's something so small that's tweaked my
Mm-hmm.
neurology in a way where it makes me see the world in a different lens, in a lens of angst, in a lens of sadness, right? And it's like, wasn't even traumatic, like what people would think is traumatic. And you have these experiences as a child where your brain just creates these meanings towards things. It's so subconscious. It's not your fault, but it's how the brain evolves as a human being. And through whatever your perception or whatever meaning your brain gives it at that time, there is also a chemical that's being released in your body. So say that your brain sees, your parents just arguing, and your brain goes, "Oh, love isn't safe. Love is, XYZ." Whatever meaning your brain gave that, your brain sends thought chemicals to your body to let your body feel the way that it's thinking. So, whatever the way that your brain has perceived the situation, the equal emotion is being, elicited throughout the body. So now the emotions of cortisol, epinephrine, whatever chemicals are also related to like depression and anxiety, your body is now releasing these chemicals throughout your body through like your hormones, right? And so then it's also now telling your brain that you're now thinking how you're feeling how you're thinking, and it just goes into like a loop of now it's like a cycle. Now you start, as you begin to get older, you become more aware of your emotions and you realize that you're feeling like anxious or depressed, and then you keep feeling anxious and depressed, and then you keep putting your focus on it and you keep feeling it, and it's just a cycle that you get into. And so one day something happens and you feel that feeling, and then a few days, and then your brain, right? You have neural pathways that are binded, that are built together. You have this high emotional charge, so your brain goes, "Oh, this is important," right? It's a negative emotional charge. You feel this charge. Your brain, as a survival mechanism, says, "Oh, this is important," so it holds on to it. And this is what I call a negative emotional knot in your subconscious or in your energy field. So you hold on to it, and now it's a significant part of your neurology. So now we have this thing in our brain called the reticular activating system, where it goes to point out everything that you already believe to be true, everything that you have a lot of emotion towards, or that's something that is repeated a lot. And so your brain's reticular activating system acts at a confirmation bias, and it now goes to its job is to go and point out all of the things in the environment that confirm the way that you already feel or the things that you already believe. So you have this negative emotional knot from something that happened in your environment or the way that your brain just happened to perceive something. You have those chemicals throughout your body. Now your brain is wired to focus on more things to make you feel that way. So you go about your day as a kid, you feel the same experiences with your teachers, you feel the same, like similar, but like not the same, but also the same experiences with friend groups, with your family, with in relationships, and you keep going through like similar patterns, and you're like, why do I keep feeling this way? Why does the same thing keep happening, but with different people or in different circumstances? It's like you can change jobs, but the boss still treats you the same, or the coworkers are like just as shitty, or whatever it is for like you and your specific situation. And it's because of this negative emotional knot that's been created in your brain, the neurology behind it, the chemicals that are being released in your body. And it's simply a pattern of the like repeated thought and emotional cycles. And so understanding how you get to the way that you are gives you massive power and being able to take action to get out of it. And when I started to get into the research behind neuroscience and energy work and how understanding that emotions really are just energy in motion and that emotions really do just like need to be felt within the body in order to be released, the more we hold on to the emotions out of the more we don't allow ourselves to feel emotions out of a place of discomfort, like when you're feeling like really anxious or really stressed and you almost like hold on to
Mhm.
it.
Yeah, like
It's like
very like tight and like constricted.
very tight, very
Yeah.
constricted. It's like a Chinese finger trap. It's like the more you don't want to feel it, the more you keep feeling it. And it
Mhm.
sucks, but the more you can get comfortable feeling uncomfortable and allow the energy of the emotion to flow through and out of your body, to allow yourself to feel the emotion to its peak for it to flow out of your body. That's like so many lessons are gained there. So much like growth is gained there, and you're like liberated, right? And you can actually grow from that experience versus what so many people in this day and age are caught up in is, and a lot of people may not be aware of it, but it's the like fear of feeling certain emotions. Like I'm afraid to feel super depressed. I'm afraid to feel super anxious because like what bad things can happen. But if we're given the right tools to manage and work through these tough emotions, we can really grow through them. And I promise you, no matter how bad your situation is, as like counterproductive or counterintuitive this may sound, I promise you, like it is here to serve you in some way. It is here to allow you to grow in a way bigger than you could have ever imagined.
Yeah, yeah, I resonate so much with you saying like just going in circles because that is exactly what I used to do. I'm sure that you've done the exact same thing too, of just it's like you're kind of just providing your body with more evidence of why you should keep thinking these things and why you're going to keep feeling anxious or why you're going to keep feeling like sad about something or thinking like, oh, like my life sucks and I have no control over it. And I think a big thing with not wanting to feel the emotions too is like I don't want to lose control. But it's just so interesting though because you're like, oh, I'm already not liking what I'm experiencing, but yet I want to still like have control over that. Like it's just really interesting. And what I'm really interested in is just how I'm not sure if you know this, but just how those like situations kind of get created in our minds because is it like completely random? Is it just some things that just hit harder than others for us? Like when it comes to taking on these little traumatic experiences, no matter how big, how small, that really just affect us and affect how we think and how we operate so much.
And you're asking specifically how, do you mind asking that again?
Yeah. Yeah. So just like the little like the things that our subconscious takes in as like threats, as traumas, and just it creates that response, like either like the stress response or like fight or flight, like anything like that, and kind of keeps us going throughout those loops of just not feeling good and continuously like not knowing why. But
Hmm.
just yeah, like just those moments, like you said, like your parents fighting or yeah, just like any little thing that you kind of like take on and you start to like believe and tell like these stories around. I'm just wondering if there's like anything that you would know of that like kind of like reasons why you would take on certain things and not others. Like I always just find that so interesting.
And it is very interesting. I'll say, like from the start, when you're in those critical ages of 0 to 7 and your mind is that sponge, there's like no filter. Your brain is just absorbing everything. So everything just is. Your brain just accepts. If you see like, I'm trying to think of a different example. Like your parents struggling with money, your
Mm,
brain automatically like creates these meanings like money's hard to come by, you have to struggle to get money, right? So that's so just like automatic. But then as you grow older, with whatever beliefs, whatever energies have been wired into the subconscious mind at those ages, starting at age 7 and beyond, your brain really starts, that reticular activating really starts being put into play, and your brain starts to really point out those like circumstances. And the way to begin to change that, there's many different ways to rewire the subconscious, but to begin to change what your reticular activating system is pointing out is to be very intentional about picking out new things in your environment. So, changing the wiring of your brain by choosing to focus on other things and expanding, I call it expanding your conscious container, meaning expanding your awareness of what are the thoughts that are going on in my head? What are the emotions that I'm feeling on a daily basis? What are the kind of belief systems and lifestyle that I was raised with, and what impact may that have had on me, growing up and maybe till now? When you expand more and more of your awareness and expanding that conscious container, you can, as you go about your day, you will notice when your brain starts to point out, oh, that relation, like that, those two people who are in a relationship, they're fighting, it must be bad, he must be cheating on her, or whatever your narrative like towards relationships is, like your negative narrative, right, that you want to get out of. You can become aware of that, you can stop it, and I call this method PRR. So when you notice a pattern or a behavior that you are currently in that you want to get out of, PRR. You first pause, right? You become aware of it by, practicing awareness, become aware of the thought pattern, of the emotional pattern. Okay, and then I pause. I stop what I'm doing. I put my phone down. I step away from the computer. Whatever you're doing, you pause because that breaks the neural pathway right in its path rather than the immediate, reaction. Then you regulate. So whatever, immediate visceral reaction that your body had to that thought, to, the emotional cycle, to the narrative, you want to calm your body down. And you can do this by many different ways: exercise, breath work, somatic shaking, getting up and literally just shaking your body. It's a great way to regulate your nervous system. Calming your mind, right? Practicing just focusing on your breath, taking deep breaths and just putting all of your awareness on your breath. A lot of people think, relaxing is just relaxing your body, but there's so much of the relaxing of the mind that we need to practice in
mhm.
order to gain conscious control of the mind, because the mind is a beast. Like it
Yes.
is a beast. It can work absolutely in your favor and it can work absolutely not in your favor. And so it's so important to gain that conscious control of your mind. Not to say that you're controlling every thought, you're controlling every emotion, because that's impossible and that's not the point, but it's to become aware of what's going on and know how to manage what's going on effectively to serve you to the highest good. And so you regulate, you calm your mind, right? Silence it out, you calm your body. Then from that neutral place, you can rewire. What is the new narrative you want to focus on? What are the new thoughts you want to focus on? What are the new emotions you want to feel? And practice those emotions. Like practice, practice, practice feeling the way that you ideally want to feel. And that's a great way to begin to like rewire what your reticular activating system is picking up on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I was going to ask that question like literally right after that. I was going to be like, "Oh, what's the first step someone could take to like getting out of this loop?" So, I love
Mhm.
that you just naturally went into that. And I just was thinking so much about how difficult that was for me when I first started doing that. Like, and how you just talked about embracing that discomfort, embracing those emotions that you wouldn't normally like want to feel and kind of try to avoid. But like that's a huge first step in like really just becoming a co-creator of your life and just being a lot more intentional with it, I believe is like
Mhm.
actually just taking the time for those pauses. And if you're someone who is anxious, that can feel really hard right off the bat. I know for me, just because I my instinct was just to be like, no, I need to fix, I need to fix. And when I got kind of into working on my mindset, I would just try to like logic my way through it all and just like what you said, like we're not going to have control over all of our thoughts, but I kept thinking like I need to have control over all of my thoughts or else like they control me. And I took it like too deep in that way to the point where it just felt so overwhelming in my brain, constantly trying to control every single thought that I had that I was like, this is so much. Like, I don't want to work on this anymore. And I think it actually like wasn't even helping me that much because it just felt so like forceful and so much pressure on that. But once I started to actually pause and take deep breaths, like when I would get anxious, I'd be like, okay, it's time for a break from what we're doing. It's time to like reconnect here and like regulate our nervous system a little bit because clearly it's wanting some love and it's wanting some attention. But I think the biggest takeaway, like for myself personally, and I think like what you said is so true, is that pause. Like it is so sacred and it makes such a difference to just like, even if it's just like three deep breaths, like something so simple like that can make an absolute world of a difference. Like once you get out of your head and into your body a little bit more. And I love what you said about like somatic shaking. I am all here for a good somatic shake. And I do that all the time, especially if it feels really uncomfortable. I think a great way to move through that is just to shake your body like an absolute maniac until it doesn't feel so bad anymore.
Yeah, and there was I don't remember where I heard this, but I remember hearing that when a zebra is being chased in the wild and then like by a lion, and then the zebra gets away, what the zebra does to release the cortisol and get back to its homeostasis is it shakes its entire body until it releases all
Mm,
its
yeah.
cortisol. And hearing that, I was like, this is science. Like, this is like backed up. Like, you might look silly AF. Like, you might look so ridiculous. You can do it alone in your bedroom. You can do it in your car. You can go to the bathroom stall in a public place and do it. I've definitely done that before.
Mhm.
And like, if it works, it works. So, like, who cares if it looks weird? Like, shaking your body, like shaking your hands, shaking your shoulders, jumping around, get comfortable being uncomfortable in those like quote unquote weird things, because I promise you, like, let loose and get into it and dropping into your body and allowing your body to process the emotions in that way instead of trying to logically, deep compartmentalize and logically try to like, oh, I'm feeling this way because of that and I shouldn't be feeling this way. Why am I still feeling this way? Like, cut that shit out, get out of your head, get into your body, do some somatic shaking, and I promise you, you will feel a difference.
It's like two types of crazy. It's like just going crazy within your own mind, or you can like be crazy and like just move your body. But that's like the way better version of craziness, I think.
Yes, it's like, those like blow up things that they put in front of like the car sales, like those blow up
Yes.
like that's how I want you to look when you're doing somatic shaking. Like, get loose with it, get crazy with it, get wild with it, like have some fucking fun because life's too short not to have fun and to be
hmm
stuck in your head. And I want to share something else that really it was a big breakthrough in moving through like my deep depression. Depression like ruled my life for so many years. And I remember when I was learning about the law of attraction, I didn't quite understand the psychology, the science, like the chemicals, the way that I explain it now, it's because I've had the experience and so many more years of research behind this stuff. At that point in time, years ago, I was 21 at the time, I'm 28 now. I found out about the law of attraction. And my first thing when I found out about the law of attraction, I said, I don't care about the car, I don't care about the house, I don't care about the money. I just want to feel good. I just want to feel happy.
Yeah.
And the first thing was to manifest happiness. And so when I noticed if I would be sitting on the couch, laying on my phone, and I would notice the clouds just go over my head and like the voices all in my ears, and I would feel like this heaviness feeling of like not wanting to get up and like not wanting to do anything with my day and like feeling so hard on myself. When I noticed I would start to get into that place, I was like, no, I'm going to manifest happiness. So what I did, and I didn't realize I was doing this at the time, but I would stand up and I would do jumping jacks, literally like 100 jumping jacks. I would do jumping jacks until my state changed. And I would like say, like, I would smile also because I watched this video, this TED Talk, where this woman was talking about body language and how the body sends chemicals to the brain. And when you change your body posture, when you smile, right, it just automatically sends chemicals to the brain. And you don't even have to be confident. You don't even have to be happy. But just by changing your posture and your smile on your face, physically changes the chemicals that are being released, in your brain and in your body. And so I listened to that. And so I would get up and do these jumping jacks and I would put a smile on my face and I'd be in my living room by myself looking so crazy, jumping jacks, smiling, and like saying positive affirmations about myself. And it worked to begin to rewire. Of course, there were other practices that I put into place, but it worked to rewire my neurology because the way that my brain was programmed was to continue to think very negative things about myself and about my life and to be in this victim mindset. And my body was releasing all of the chemicals that were in correlation to that versus I paused, I stopped myself. I kind of skipped over the regulation piece because I wasn't that aware of like what was going on at that time, but I went right into like the rewiring and I started to release different hormones throughout my body through just moving it. And that practice alone saved me, I think, from so many. I think that practice alone just saved me completely from getting out of those like really deep ruts that I used to be in.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. And the fact that you just started with just moving your body and not necessarily knowing like what that meant at the time, but just being like, okay, like I'm starting to feel a little bit better. Like there's something to this. And I think that's also a huge thing. Like when you start healing and kind of learning about these things is just like being open to trying different things as well. And even if you
Mhm.
do think like, oh, this is dumb, I look so stupid, like literally no one cares. Like if you are by yourself and you have the opportunity to try these things, like just do it. Because
Mhm.
I think I really like what you said just about like how you weren't really necessarily regulating yet, but like I feel like you kind of were doing like the jumping jacks without even realizing it, which is really cool. And I think that's such a cool part of like getting into the body more because the body is like so wise and it will guide you if you just give it a chance to, if you just allow yourself to get out of your mind a little bit too. So I
Mhm.
really like that you like brought that all together. And I just think that's so incredible that you would kind of force yourself to do that because I think when we feel so terrible, like actually having the courage to get up and do jumping jacks and just start reprogramming your brain, like that is so brave in my eyes. So I just want to like commend you so much for that. And like anyone who is just starting this journey or is working through things, like just know how brave you are for that because that is a huge thing to do to actually start to shift your internal world and start to switch those neural pathways. It's just so incredible.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then I think just another thing I wanted to ask you was we kind of got like a tool to use with um, the pause and then the regulate and rewire. Is there anything else you think like would be really helpful for people that they can use like on a daily basis?
This is going to sound so basic. I feel
Mhm.
like I'm trained in so many modalities and so many methods. But as you were talking, I remembered another practice that absolutely shifted so much for me and changed my reticular activating system and what my brain is picking up on. And it was a morning gratitude practice. It was when
Mm.
I was in, my worst of the worst, lowest of the lows, like rock bottom. I would force myself to open my journal and write down 10 things that I'm grateful for. And even if it felt like I was, there's nothing to be grateful for, I would write down, I'm grateful for the sun. I'm grateful for the birds like singing in the trees. I'm grateful for like, basic things that, I'm breathing, I'm healthy. And over time, my gratitude became easier and easier to do. And I noticed after like day 3, day 4, especially after a week, and I will emphasize that, after one day, you may not notice a difference, but it's the compound effect, just like meditation, it's the compound effect of every single day doing, a small habit like this that makes a massive difference. I noticed after a few days, and especially after a week, my brain was just pointing out things that I was grateful for. My mood, I would wake up and just feel more elevated. I would feel more happy in my relationship with my partner at the time. I would feel more happy, like just in general. And I'd be going about my day being like, oh, I'm so grateful for my home. I'm so grateful for my cat. I'm so grateful, for this and for that. And I'm like, wow, like my state is significantly shifting through one simple basic practice that so many people go, oh yeah, gratitude practice. I've heard that a million times before. And it's like, but have you done it? Have you been consistent with it? Did you notice differences
Yes.
from it? If you notice differences from it, then why aren't you still consistent with it, right? It's like the brain tries to like push away the things that are really going to help us, but it's things that are so simple like that that make, the biggest difference.
Yeah, and it's like not trying not to overlook those things that don't give us that instant gratification because so much of healing and rewiring and just like coming back to your true self is consistency, which is
Hmm.
so big. And I really like that you pointed out gratitude. It's like such a coincidence that you did because this morning I was like, you know what? Like I haven't written out gratitudes in a while. Like I'm really feeling like I want to do that. And I just started like going on a little like gratitude rampage and I decided to go like deeper into why things like why I was grateful for things and it felt so good. And then I was like, oh, like why have I not been doing this like every day for a little bit now? It's like it's just such a good reminder and like gratitude's such a high vibrational energy too and it just feels so good in your body and helps you to be so much more present too. And be like, wow,
Hmm.
like there actually is like something going good in my life. And I think it's just that's a huge part of how we feel too, is like seeing all this evidence around us and kind of taking that and that kind of like just creates how we feel emotionally, like internally too. So like recognizing those good things that are happening, even if it's the absolute tiniest thing, like you said, like, oh, like the sun is shining today, or like I had a good sleep last night. Like honestly, anything. It's just so cool to me. And I also
Anything.
yeah.
I was gonna mention too, just to take this one step farther, it's like the saying where it's like if 8 things are going right and 2 things are going wrong, if you focus on those 2 things, you'll end up with 8 things going wrong and 2 things going right. Versus
Mhm.
if 8 things are going wrong and 2 things are going right, and you focus on the 2 things that are going right, you'll end up with 8 things going right and 2 things going wrong. And with any area of your life that you may be struggling in or that you may want to improve in, do the gratitude practice on that specific area and find things. I don't care if you're like, there's nothing to be grateful for, find things to be grateful for that are going well, that are working out, and point them out to your brain and put emphasis on it, put emotion behind it. Be so convicted. This is going well in my life. Hell yes, get excited about it. The more you amp that up, the more your brain is going to find more ways that it's working out for you. And your body is going to respond to that. And you're going to start acting in alignment with that. And you're going to start creating and manifesting and attracting that area of your life going much more smoothly for you.
Hmm. I love that. That's like that's just magical right there. I love that so much. And I think like that's such a good practice like that people can incorporate into their life today because it's so simple. It literally takes a couple minutes and you just write down a few things.
Mhm.
And I also just wanted to add too, like what something that I always do is whenever something goes good, I always just say like everything is working out in my favor. And whenever something like goes good in my life, I just keep saying that. I'm like, see, this is why everything works out in your
Yes.
favor. And it just keeps emphasizing it. And you find it in
Mhm.
more and more things. You're like, wow, like life really is working out for me because it's working out for all of us. It's really just how we choose to see it. So I think it's just so
Mhm.
cool to kind of bring it all together with like the gratitude and recognizing all of these amazing things that are happening for us that we just have to open our minds to.
Yeah, and that evidence piece of you saying like, see, it's working out for me.
Hmm.
You're like pointing out the evidence, and it's like whatever you point out the evidence to. You could say, see, things always go wrong for me. See, things never, go my way. You're pointing out evidence, and the more whatever you put evidence behind, the more your brain is going to point out more of. And so I love that you pointed that out because it's like when you go about your day, it is so powerful to point out the things that are going right and to point out, find evidence of the narratives and the beliefs and the things that you want to create, how like it is supporting you and how it is going your way.
Hmm. Yes, exactly. I think that's just like the best path that like we can help people get on right now is like gratitude, pausing, and regulating. I think that's huge. And also like the rewire part. I think they all really go together so well. And I also
Yeah.
just love like learning all the science behind it from you. I think it's so fascinating. I've always been someone who's just like, oh, I'll just believe whatever. I don't need the science behind it. But I know so many people in this day and age are like, I need the cold hard facts or I will not believe this at all. So I just love that you kind of like merge the two together of like the science and the spiritual. I think that's so cool. And I'd love to hear just like a little more about like what that's been like for you, kind of like bringing the two together.
It's been really beautiful because I feel like, again, being an open-minded skeptic, it's like I believe it, but I can't fully believe it if I don't have the science behind it. But then when I like go into, for example, Dr. Bruce Lipton, he wrote The Biology of Belief. He really, him and his team have done a lot of studies around how um, it's not your environment that particularly it's his team's basically concluded that you can change your genetic structure, you can change your genes by changing your emotional state, by changing your thoughts, because they all send different chemical signals to the body, and you can turn off and on certain genes for weight loss, for health and different diseases and disorders, and the list goes on and on. Researching studies behind Dr. Bruce Lipton. Dr. Wayne Dyer is another great one. Dr. Joe Dispenza, I'm OD obsessed with his work. And having these studies, to back myself up, it's created so much like certainty of like, hell yes, like this is it. And also because I come from a medical background from, studying medicine and studying like what they teach in schools behind that. And so to take what Western medicine teaches and then to now learn like the research and the science behind holistic medicine, it's very eye-opening to what the body and the mind are truly capable of, which is way beyond than what we have even like scratched the surface of. And then to see the shifts not only in myself, not only in my clients, but to go to like a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat and to see someone have an instantaneous healing. And I know this may, if you're not familiar with this kind of work, this may sound really off the wall, and that's okay. If you're like, how the fuck is that possible? I don't know if I can cuss on this.
these these crazy ladies, yes, you can.
Yes. And witnessing with my own eyes, because part of me, I'm like, I don't know if I can believe this, like if I don't see it. Witnessing instantaneous healings of a man being unable to walk in a wheelchair, doing, um, uh, I'll describe it as like an energy healing, and then being able to stand up and run, not walk, but run across a ballroom, seeing a woman in the same breath, seeing a woman who has like stage 4 cancer, she's gone through the chemo, she has a scarf around her head, who has been like so sick throughout the entire retreat, who was like, sitting there, didn't have much energy. She had to be wheeled a lot to get up from one of these energy healings to then just stand up and like start doing jumping jacks, like visibly, like completely has shifted physically. That to me, it's like we haven't even scratched the surface to what the human consciousness, the human mind, the human body is capable of. And to me, that's been like my biggest takeaway and my biggest thing that I'm like becoming more and more infatuated with is diving more into the research of like the holistic health and how we can use our brains and our hearts and align the two to really become like superhuman, to get into a very, it's called coherent energy, a very whole type energy where the actions that you take move mountains, where you live in bliss. Not to say that you don't have, uncomfortable emotions that come up, but your baseline is bliss, where you can experience and create these kind of like miracles in your life. But it's all in our capability. We just haven't been taught how to tap into the power that we have within us. And that to me has been the most like transformative thing that I've experienced and witnessed.
Hmm. That sounds insane. That is so cool that you got to see that in person. I think that's like the best evidence ever to see. To be like, you know what? Like, if that guy can do that, if he can get up and start running, I can do anything. Like, we can all do anything, which is just so cool. And I really love that you said whole, because I feel like the state you're describing of just being in bliss, but also being able to like feel our full range and depth of emotions and just really go through things in kind of a more flowy way and just kind of responding to things as they come up. I think that's like how we're all like meant to be. And I think that's all like how we kind of came here to be as like our like spiritual beings that we are, whatever everyone's beliefs are. That's just my own. But I just think that's so cool because like that just shows like anything is really possible if you believe. And I like what you said also about just barely skimming the surface. I think that's so true. I think there's going to be so many more things that come out down the road, especially from people like Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm obsessed with him too, and I've been wanting to go to his retreats. I'm like, that's so amazing you went to one. Definitely soon. Like that's definitely like one of my bucket list things is to go to one of his retreats. But I just think that story is so powerful. And then
Mhm.
my last thing I want to ask you, I know you've kind of given a little bit of this, but I just love to know if you had like one piece of advice to give someone right now, like what would that be?
Let me drop in and see what comes
Yeah, of
up.
course. Yeah, you take your time.
It would be listen to yourself. There's so many voices and narratives and parents and teachers and role models that are saying you should do this, you should go in that direction, you should take this job, you should speak in this way, you should hold yourself in this way, you should a million things. But everyone's path is so different. And your heart really like holds all of the answers in order like to take the stepping stones to reach your highest potential, like the timeline in which you are the happiest, you're the most in love, you're the most fulfilled, you're the most successful, all the things you could have ever wished and dreamed of and more. Like it all exists out there, but it really, the steps to get there are within you. The answers are not within other people or, following a mentor to their exact steps or any of that. You can take bits and pieces from different people that resonate with you, but the most important thing that I believe that you can do in your life is to become that true leader of your life is to listen to yourself. Where do I feel called to go next? Who do I feel called to talk to? Where do I feel called to work? Where do I feel called to live? And it might not make logical sense. It might be really scary. And those are actually two really good signs because you're stepping totally into the unknown and onto a totally different timeline as you go and follow those inner nudges. And that's where like the magic really happens. It's like when you listen to yourself, you take the scary ass step and you're like, I have no idea what's going to come to this, but something in me is telling me to go here and I'm going to go here. And then it's like the, the evolution, like things unfold, something works out for you, you meet the right person, things fall into place, you make the money to be able to like pay the rent of the like beautiful apartment that you've manifested. Like things come together when you listen to yourself and become your own leader of your life.
That's so beautiful. I love that so much. It's like all about like trusting yourself. I think that's so amazing. And listening to those nudges, I think are like the little breadcrumbs just taking you where exactly where you're meant to go. So thank you so much for sharing that. That was just so beautifully said. And just thank you for all of your wisdom and for coming on today and for sharing with everyone. I'm just so grateful that I got to meet you, that I got to experience your work firsthand. So if you want to let everyone know like where they can connect with you, how they can work with you, and just like what you're offering right now too.
Absolutely. So you can find me on YouTube, Better You by Sabrina. I share a lot of my teachings and perspectives, and you can hang out with me there. Also on Instagram, Better You by Sabrina. And I'll send you, Ruby, a link for people if they want to get deeper into my world. I'm coming out with a new identity map where you can go in and recreate your yourself, completely recreate a new identity of who you want to step into. And it guides you step by step how to do that. It guides you through the pause, regulate, rewire process. And it's a really great stepping stone to get into the Better You space, to get introduced to the community. So I'll send you that link if somebody wants to get into that to go deeper.
Yeah, perfect. Amazing. Well, thank you again just so much for being here today. And I just wish you all the best. I'm so happy that we've just gotten to connect more. I'm just loving our connection so much.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me on.